probably wondering why you've gotten this funny little diagram. Well, I want to introduce you guys today to something called Commedia dell'arte. Have you guys ever heard of that before? Yeah. Okay, cool. So who's taking a French class right now, or Spanish class, or maybe even know a little Italian? Yeah?
I know French.
Okay. Okay, very nice. Okay, so somebody tell me, what do you think Commedia dell'arte, what does that word sound like?
Comedy art.
Comedy, right? And you hear the word art, right? Very good. Okay, so sounds like comedy of art. It actually means comedy of artisans in this case. That's what the art refers to. So these are people who have studied comedy, okay? And this is really important to you guys because you see this every day. You just might not notice it yet. So you see it in sitcoms, you see it in movies, especially big satirical movies like anything with Chris Farley or anything like that. Okay, right? So I'm going to give you guys some examples of what those characters look like so that you can identify them every day. And I even have some fun clips from Seinfeld and from some other fun things. But let me take you back first, okay? Yeah, see? Right? I didn't get any friends, and I wanted to do How I Met Your Mother, but not appropriate for school. Yeah, exactly. So, okay, so here's what we're going to do. First, I want to set the scene for you, what the time period looks like. So, just picture in your mind, put your diagrams on the table for a minute. Don't worry about taking notes first. Just think with me back to the early 1500s, okay? So, theater is outlawed at this time. Theater has been outlawed for 200 years. If you were an actor and you were performing in the middle of the streets, you know, just for fun, you were dancing around, you would get locked in jail. It was illegal. Then we have something that starts up. They're called pageant plays. So they're religiously based plays that tell stories, and those started to be allowed. And then you see a little bit more of them. Then you see something called mystery plays, and they're drawing from the story, and they add a little bit of extra content to it, and explain a little bit more. 1552 is the date that you want to know for Commedia dell'arte. That's the first time that you see people acting in public, and they don't get dragged off to jail. This probably happens because 1558, Queen Elizabeth, who is known to have helped to bring about the Renaissance and art and music and all these other things, she comes to power. So that's your big historical influence, and changes a lot of the rules and things like that. So to give you guys a little bit of an idea of where this is in a time frame, Shakespeare is born right about this time. Just about 20 years after Commedia dell'arte starts. So he grows up seeing a lot of Commedia dell'arte, and you can find a lot of the different stereotype characters and the archetypes in Shakespeare every day. You have the guy who's clearly the comic relief, who's always there. You have, the romantic interest, the lovers like Romeo and Juliet, for example. You have people who are advisors, people who are know-it-alls. These are all stereotypes or archetypes that are drawn off of Commedia dell'arte. So, Commedia dell'arte is the first time that people in 200 years were allowed to act in public. They actually started to perform, and they formed big troupes, and they started to travel around. Now, of course, you have Spain, you have France, you have Italy. A lot of people know a general amount of the dialect, but not everybody in Spain knows French. Not everybody in France knows Italian. So a lot of their words that they use are more like babble speak. It's like, have you guys ever seen The Sims? You guys play that? It's like, so they speak in babble speak, but you kind of get an idea of what they say, like, no. But you got what I said, right? It's an intonation kind of thing. So this is more like what they use. Now, 460 years later, 2013, 4061, or 461, we have adapted a lot of Commedia dell'arte, so now people use phrases and words that are common that people understand when they're explaining, and they still do live performances of Commedia dell'arte. So, Here's what I want to do. I'm going to give you guys some examples of these characters, and I'd like you guys to make your own notes so that you can remember for yourselves what these crazy weird Italian words mean. And you can draw, whatever works most for you. I'll tell you guys what I use, to remember some of these things. And, and there's no right or wrong answer. Whatever helps you to remember the best, that's what you should be using. Okay. So, biggest thing you guys need to know, there are 3 different types of characters in Commedia dell'arte. First, there are the Immarati. Immarati are the lovers. Multiple. Let's go back to language for a second. Somebody who knows French or Spanish, what's the end of a word mean if you have an A at the end of a word? Feminine. Okay, right. And then how about an O at the end of the word? Masculine. Very good. So when we refer to these characters, most of these characters are represented either masculine or feminine, because 150 years after Commedia dell'arte starts, women are allowed to perform in it, which is really good. Okay, they're publicly acclaimed, they're allowed to be professional actors, this is a grand thing. So, but the I at the end of a word, somebody tell me what that means in your Latin base. Multiple, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Immarati mean 2 lovers, the lovers, okay? And these guys can have different names. If, sir, you were an Immarati, you can make up whatever name you want. You could be
like the names are relevant?
Right, exactly. Something romantic sounding like Mario. And you could be Isabella, because it sounds beautiful. Right, see, there you go, exactly. But, hey, they have Italian books. So, but you guys would make up your own names. And there are lots of different romantic names that the Immarati have. Most importantly, these 2 people are infatuated with each other. And without them, you would not have a plot at all for Commedia dell'arte. Most of the storylines center around them. They want to be together, but they're kept apart. Very dramatic. Okay? These are the only characters in Commedia dell'arte that don't have masks, but I've tried to, that's why I've walked around with my funny makeup today. I don't walk around with red lipstick on all day long. This is an example of what an Immarati would have. A slightly whiter face, so I picked a concealer that was a step below because we were talking about makeup before, right? And bright red lipstick, bright pink cheeks, and you can tell how enamored they are with each other. Their movements are gentle, slow, but they're always clutching something like a letter, for example, that their love has brought them, or whatever. So they have some help. They have first what are called zanis. A zani is a clown. What does the word zani sound like when you hear it? Yeah, zany. Exactly. That's the context. That's what it should remind you of. That's how I remember it. It's zany action, zany movement, crazy, things that they're going to do. You never know what they're going to do, actually, if they're a zani. So we have different levels of zani. So right here, we're going to talk first about these zani right here. This zani is called Colombina.
How do you spell that?
I actually wrote it out for you guys so that you could get the right spellings. And I know it's a lot of weird word and context. So Colombina, she is the maid to the lovers, usually the female lover. And she's probably the smartest of all of the zani. And when you're talking about Commedia dell'arte, you usually talk about the most intelligent versus the not so intelligent. And we'll work all the way down when you see that. So Colombina is here. She's a very witty maid. And all of the zanis are servants. So they represent the everyman. And she's actually the one who drives a lot of the plot. She helps the lovers to get together. She'll help outwit the other people who are against the lovers, who are trying to keep them apart. She'll also play off of the other zani who are there, kind of causing trouble. So you have two other Zani here. You have Brighello. Brighello is number 7. And Brighello is usually the servant or the helper to either El Dottore or Pantalone, who are their masters. And these Zani, they're smarter, but they get distracted easily. Let's say that. Okay. Right here we have Alecchino. So what does the word Alecchino sound like to you? Somebody said something to me earlier. Yeah, like Harlequin, right? Have you guys ever heard of a Harlequin doll or a Harlequin costume? Okay, so you guys asked me what I was wearing today. This is my Harlequin-inspired or Alecchina-inspired costume. It's patchwork black, or you've seen other times, like people think of jesters now, where they have different colors and patterns all over their costumes.
Like the checkered colors costume, like black, white, and got like patches of different colors on the arms.
Exactly. The more zany, the better. And Alecchino, he will assist either El Dottore or Pantalone in the same way. Your last Zani is usually just called Zani. He is the craziest, wackiest, can't keep still kind of Zani that you have. Now, this is very interesting. This Zani has a very long nose, and they say the longer the nose, the dumber you are. And just to say it so that you know, he's the conclusion that I like to draw. Anybody who you can think of who's just off the wall. One of those characters that's just walks in, does something crazy, walks back out. He's an example of Zani.
So, like Joey or Barney.
You guys can make a little picture if you want, or just do a little detail, anything extra, to help you remember.
You see it too, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to give you guys some examples so that you can see Commedia dell'arte now. Okay, so we have, so far we have the Amorati, right, the lovers. Then we have the Zani, who are the what? The servants, right? Now we have the Vecchi. The Vecchi literally means old man, but I like to think of Vecchi meaning villain, V for villain, because they're the ones who try to thwart the plot. They'll always cause trouble for the Amorati, the lovers. They'll always, try to send the servant off to do something, and then, something happens. So we have 3 different examples of Vecchi. We have El Dottore, who is a doctor. We don't think he's actually a doctor. He just likes to walk around and act like he knows everything in the entire world, and he's so fat with knowledge. That's how they describe him, that he knows nothing. I think of the guy in Scrubs, the older gentleman in Scrubs. And then we have his counterpart, the guy who he hangs out with all the time, Pantalone. And Pantalone is a merchant, and he is so concerned that he will lose his money. He is very greedy, and he's always running around trying to make sure that no matter what, he doesn't lose any money or anything. Last one, my favorite, is El Capitano. Now, El Capitano, he has a fabulous hat. And he likes to talk about his fabulous hat. He has a fabulous hat with great plumes. He has a fabulous sword, and he has a fabulous cape. He represents military often. He probably technically doesn't actually have a military background, but he likes to walk around and act like he does.
Like the 3 Musketeers?
Like the 3 Musketeers. I think of, in How I Met Your Mother, I think of Neil Patrick Harris's character. Somebody who thinks he's self-important. He's, God's gift. All of the women love him. Everyone should fear him, and he's the most powerful and wonderful and amazing.
He's probably a wimp.
Exactly, and that's the truth. That's actually the key to El Capitano. Thank you. So El Capitano might act like he's brave, but he's actually the biggest chicken you've ever met. And as soon as anything comes on stage, like a rat, for example, he will jump up on a chair and act like a little girl.
He's the first to leave.
He's definitely the first to leave, exactly. Okay. You have one more Vici up here called Magnifico, and Magnifico is sometimes in Commedia. So I brought him up because when he appears in Commedia scenes, he is the king, or he is, the ruler of the town. He's, the highest in charge. I think of
He's a villain?
Yes, because he's an old man. He's still thwarting, still causing trouble, or causing confrontation. I think of like the prince in Romeo and Juliet. He's not helping, but he's not hurting, but he's not really helping.
Like at the end, he's kind of settles things like,
right, exactly.
Y'all stop being stupid.
Right, exactly. And so when you guys look at this, I want you to think of this in terms of movement. So this guy down here, this Zani, has the craziest, wackiest, outlandish movement, that you can imagine. Even Alakino is known to do somersaults. He's known to do backflips and all sorts of random other things just to walk, down the street.
Did we do number 9?
El Capitano.
What was that?
And then El Capitano, just to recap, he's got a lot of outlandish big movement. And then as you move up, these guys move less and less. Their gestures and movements are less exaggerated. Don't worry guys, I also have a nice little detailed handout to give you some extra information about these characters. If you want to flip it over real quick, on the back, I have some nice pictures. And it's a little hard to see on the other end. Okay. Alright, so we have here El Doctore. We have here El Capitano. He doesn't have his mask on here, but he'll have a great big nose because he's not the most intelligent of the Vici. We have here Alakino, who's in the Harlequin patches. This is Pantalone. This is Bragello. This is an example of one of the lovers and his counterpart. And then we can also have a Bragella. So that means a girl version of the servant. Okay? And then we have other examples like this one is an interpretation of Zani. He's got big flabby clothes on. He's not really in fashion. Sometimes he even just wears a burlap sack. So. Okay, so you can't really understand Commedia until you watch it. So I brought you guys in a really good video. And we're going to watch a quick clip of El Capitan and Alakino. These guys, and you guys can go look these guys up too, but these guys do live performances of Commedia in this time period now, so they'll speak in English instead of blabber speak. I think they're Australian, but they're doing Italian Commedia dell'arte. So I thought that was kind of cool. Okay, so let's check real quick. I'm so sorry, guys. It's just getting disconnected. Okay, everybody's awake now, right? Okay, good.
I'm not supposed to.
Okay.
It's not plugging in.
Hold on a second. Technical difficulties. Do you know how to type it up?